At dawn, a woman in Ridgeline Heights turned her kitchen tap. Nothing came out.
This unkempt water feature is devaluing every home here. We must drain it.
The owner of that ugly pond is Colonel Larry McAllister, a man who wears army green under a red flannel. His 42-acre lake isn't a pond. It's a federally licensed reservoir, part of the region's flood control network.
I move that we authorize a lawsuit to force drainage immediately.
The board voted yes. They had no idea what they were about to trigger.
They just made the biggest mistake of their lives.
Larry held a federal license that superseded their state lawsuit, a fact they'd ignored.
That old man can't stop us. We'll have a court order in weeks.
But what Dorothy didn't know was that she wasn't suing a pond owner. She was suing the man who held the keys to every drop of water her HOA used. Larry's grandfather bought the land in 1971, along with a note, "Water is power. Use it wisely."
They're coming for the wrong thing, Granddad. They don't know what this reservoir really is.
Dorothy hired Vincent Chase, a connected attorney known for bulldozing small landowners in court. Chase's complaint read, "The reservoir constitutes an unkempt nuisance water feature, devaluing adjacent properties. Defendant must drain it within 90 days.
Once we drain that eyesore, property values will climb 10%. I've already heard from 3 buyers.
The lawsuit arrived at Larry's kitchen table. He opened it without surprise.
They sued to drain a federal reservoir. This will be over before it starts.
He pulled out the federal license, a 1978 core document listing flood control, irrigation, and regional supply. Every drop of water flowing to the HOA's 940 homes passed through this reservoir. It was the silent spine of their community. Larry filed the lawsuit in a drawer and waited. He'd spent 30 years serving his country. He wouldn't flinch for a zoning dispute. The hearing lasted 40 minutes. Larry brought the federal license, but the court wasn't listening.
Your Honor, this reservoir is a federally licensed flood control asset. State courts cannot order its drainage.
This isn't about federal jurisdiction. It's a simple zoning enforcement. The reservoir is an unkempt nuisance.
I've heard enough. The drainage order is granted. You have 90 days to comply.
The gavel fell twice. The clerk presented the order, already stamped in red.
We did it. That eyesore is gone.
They don't realize they just ordered a federal impoundment drained. This isn't over.
Dorothy turned to the gallery with a triumphant smile. Larry folded the court order and left quietly. He had no intention of draining a single drop. He knew exactly who to forward this order to. The Corps would recognize a state court trying to override federal authority. Their response would be immediate and severe. Larry opened his laptop at the Corps field office. He typed a subject line and forwarded the court order without a single additional word. Within minutes, the email landed at U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Regional Headquarters. General Thomas Barrow opened the attachment and read the state court order. His face went still as he read the judge's signature.
This is a state court ordering a federal reservoir drained.
He pulled up the water allocation map. The HOA's share was fed entirely from McAllister's reservoir. Every drop of their water came through that impoundment, and the Corps controlled the valves. The contract was clear. Any interference could trigger immediate revocation of the entire water allocation.
I've never seen a state court so brazenly overstep. Get me, Jag. We're revoking the HOA's water allocation, effective immediately.
The legal team confirmed the preemption violation. The order would go out within the hour, and the HOA would feel it by morning.
We won. The drainage order will be enforced. Property values will soar.
At 4 a.m., a Corps maintenance worker turned a release valve at the pumping station. Not off, but down to a trickle. By dawn, showers across Ridgeline Heights sputtered and died to a cold dribble.
Is anyone else's water pressure gone? My shower barely works.
Dorothy Covington posted on the HOA forum, "Scheduled pump maintenance, nothing to do with the lawsuit. Please be patient."
They're starting to feel it, and they still think it's a coincidence.
By mid-afternoon, the trickle became a drip, and then nothing. Kitchen faucets stood silent. On Ridgeline Way, a resident twisted a fire hydrant cap and held a flashlight up. Not a drop.
This whole hydrant is bone dry. That's not a pump issue. That's a complete shutdown.
The community message board exploded with frustrated posts, but Dorothy's pinned announcement blamed a water main break. Larry checked his core tablet. The allocation revocation was confirmed. The water wasn't coming back until the core allowed it. The water stopped completely across all 940 homes. Not a single tap dripped. At the community pool, a lifeguard posted a bright yellow sign. Closed by federal order. On Ridgeline Drive, a core worker snapped a red tag onto a fire hydrant. Out of service. Allocation revoked. Dorothy's emergency email read, "Mandatory HOA meeting tonight. We will address the water supply disruption."
I assure you, we are working with the water district. This is a bureaucratic mistake by the Army Corps.
We haven't had water in 2 days. Our kids can't bathe. How is this a mistake?
The Corps overstepped. Our attorney will file an immediate injunction to restore service.
You said the drainage lawsuit would help us. Now we have no water. Did you cause this?
We won the lawsuit. The reservoir is an eyesore and must be drained. The water cut is unrelated.
The HOA room remained chaotic, but nobody yet understood they were the hammer, and the core the anvil. After the meeting, Dorothy locked herself in the HOA office and dialed Chase.
Vincent, we need to enforce the drainage order now. The Corps cut our water.
Dorothy, slow down. The Corps doesn't cut water over a state court order unless they've invoked federal preemption. They're calling your lawsuit interference with a federal asset. We're not in state court anymore. This is a federal matter now.
That's absurd. The judge ruled it's an eyesore. We won. The Corps can't just.
They can, and they have. I am looking at a notice from the Corps JAG. The water cut is retaliation. We've triggered a federal lockdown.
At Corps headquarters, General Barrow faced reporters. He gave no comment, but the press release was merciless. The Corps statement read, "Water allocation revoked due to judicial interference with a federally licensed impoundment. Restoration requires formal petition." The news broke across the HOA. Residents gathered in the street, their anger no longer at the Corps, but at their own board.
She sued a federal reservoir. That's why we're dry. This is all her fault.
By the fourth day, certified letters from fire insurance carriers arrived in mailboxes across the HOA. The letters read, "Coverage canceled due to loss of water supply to fire hydrants. Your home is now uninsurable."
They're dropping our fire insurance. My mortgage company will foreclose if I can't maintain coverage.
A local news van parked outside the HOA gate. The story was about to go statewide. The chyron read, "HOA sued federal reservoir. Now 940 homes without water or fire insurance."
This is a federal overreach. We will fight this in court. My attorney is preparing an appeal.
Your lawsuit caused this. You told us it was an eyesore, and now we can't sell our homes.
The insurance cancellations triggered automatic mortgage defaults. 3 families received foreclosure notices within a week.
I've lived here 15 years. Now, I'll lose everything because the HOA chair wanted a nicer view.
Dorothy's phone rang constantly. The HOA switched from a scenic committee to a legal disaster. At the state attorney general's office, Claire Delgado read the Corps' press release and the insurance cancellation reports. She picked up the phone.
This is a textbook supremacy clause violation. A state court cannot order a federal reservoir drained.
She filed an emergency motion to vacate the drainage order, citing federal preemption. Judge Harrison received the motion within the hour. His face went pale as he read the federal argument. He had no choice. The law was clear. He scheduled an immediate hearing.
Under the Supremacy Clause, this court's order is void. The drainage order is vacated.
Dorothy Covington sat rigid in the gallery. Her legal victory evaporated in a single sentence.
This can't be happening. We won. We had the judge's order.
There's nothing we can do. The federal government has absolute jurisdiction.
The HOA now had no court order. The water stayed off until the Corps decided otherwise. The HOA board met in emergency session. They had no legal options left.
We have to petition the Corps. It's the only way to get water back.
They drafted a formal request, fully acknowledging the reservoir's federal status and their own interference. Colonel McAllister recused himself from all matters related to the HOA. The petition went straight to General Barrow.
Restoration will require a $24 million penalty deposit paid before a single valve turns. A permanent federal easement on Dorothy Covington's property for monitoring access. Non-negotiable, and the immediate dissolution of your litigation committee. The Corps will not tolerate further harassment.
A Corps legal officer delivered the official conditions to the HOA board within the hour.
24 million. We'll have to drain every reserve, take out loans, and levy special assessments.
The board sat in stunned silence. The price of their lawsuit was now fully visible.
Dorothy Covington slammed her hand on the table. I will not authorize a single cent of this shakedown.
A board member rose, voice shaking. We have no choice. We have to accept.
The board called a vote. Hands rose one by one. The motion carried. They drained every reserve, took out loans, and levied a special assessment on all 940 homes. A Corps survey crew marked Dorothy's front lawn with orange stakes. The next morning, a drilling rig arrived and began cutting into her manicured grass. Dorothy stood at the window, watching the auger dig the monitoring well. A crew erected a permanent metal sign. Federal easement. Monitoring access.
She pressed her palm against the glass. This is my home. They're taking my land.
But the water stayed off. The Corps would not turn a single valve until the full deposit cleared. The 24 million deposit cleared. At Corps headquarters, General Barrow signed the restoration order. At the Ridgeline Heights water main, a Corps worker twisted the valve fully open. Water rushed back into the pipes. A kitchen faucet gurgled, spat brown, then ran crystal clear. A woman wept. That evening, the HOA board reconvened to read the Corps' final mandate. The atmosphere was funereal.
Effective immediately. The litigation committee is dissolved. We're adopting new bylaws that recognize federal water rights.
Dorothy Covington didn't attend. She was in the HOA office, clearing out her desk. She lifted her blotter. Underneath was the first press clipping she'd saved, a photo of her pointing at the reservoir. Captioned, "Victory."
What did I do? I turned our neighborhood into a national disgrace.
The board voted in a new president and permanently abolished the scenic committee. The HOA's era of aesthetic policing was over. Dorothy drove home past her own lawn, past the monitoring well, past the federal sign that no court order would ever remove. Larry McAllister stood on the dam, but this time he held no court order. He held a blueprint for a public fishing pier. He submitted a plan to turn the penalty deposit into a fishing pier for veterans, a public gift from private litigation. General Barrow read the cover letter and signed the approval without hesitation.
This is the Corps I serve.
In her kitchen, Dorothy Covington opened the local paper, her coffee untouched. The front page boasted, "Veterans Fishing Pier approved on formerly disputed reservoir land."
He won, and then he gave it away.
Bulldozers arrived within the week. They carved a gentle slope to the water's edge. A sign posted at the gate read, "Future site of McAllister Veterans Fishing Area, public access." Larry watched from the dam, a cup of coffee in his hand, as the first pilings were driven. The next morning, veterans from the local VFW arrived with tool belts, hard hats, and a case of coffee, eager to build.
No rank here, men. Just grab a hammer.
HOA residents brought coolers of water, sandwiches, and a note of apology from the new board. A bakery donated fresh pastries.
We never thanked you for everything.
You don't owe me thanks. Just promise to fish here with your grandkids.
A news crew returned, this time capturing hammering, laughter, and interviews with grateful veterans instead of protests.
He could have taken our homes. Instead, he built this.
Larry, in his red flannel, drove nails with the same precision he'd used decades ago when he first became an engineer. By sunset, the decking was nearly complete. The smell of fresh wood and the sound of laughter echoed across the sparkling water. The reservoir, that had been the center of a bitter lawsuit, now reflected a sky on fire, a perfect monument to patience and justice. On dedication morning, a red ribbon stretched across the pier. General Barrow stood beside him, and a dozen veterans in caps gathered near the water.
This reservoir wasn't built for courts. It was built for flood control. Today, we add a new purpose: peace.
He snipped the ribbon. Applause rippled across the water, mixing with the click of news cameras. A veteran in a wheelchair rolled to the edge and cast a line.
My grandfather once wrote, "Water is power. Use it wisely." I hope he'd say we used ours well.
Children from the HOA community ran along the pier, their bare feet slapping the wood, laughter replacing the old anger. The sign at the gate was unveiled. McAllister Veterans Fishing Area, public access.
He saved us, and all he asked in return was a place for people to fish.
They sued to drain it. Now their grandkids will learn to fish in it.
General Barrow shook Larry's hand, and for a moment the reservoir was just a lake, and the people were just neighbors, and the water was for everyone. Dorothy Covington watched the dedication from her sedan, parked on the ridge overlooking the reservoir.
They're celebrating the water I tried to destroy.
That evening, she sat at her half-cleared desk and wrote a single letter. The letter to Larry and the community read, "I confused order with control. The water was never mine to command." She placed it in the HOA mailbox, then drove past the federal easement sign for the last time. A month later, the HOA board installed an interpretive sign beside the fishing pier. It read, "This reservoir is a federally licensed flood control asset. Interference may result in loss of water supply."
We'll never make that mistake again. The water isn't ours. We just get to use it.
No one sued, no one screamed. The reservoir simply did its work, holding back floods and letting people live beside it. Dorothy's house sold to a young family who fished on weekends. The monitoring well on their lawn became a teaching tool for the local scout troop. At Corps headquarters, General Barrow presented Larry with a formal commendation for exemplary restraint in defense of federal authority.
You held the line, Colonel. The Corps is stronger for it.
Just doing my job, sir.
After the ceremony, Larry drove to the reservoir, parked on the dam, and cut the engine.
Granddad's words keep coming back. Water is power. Use it wisely.
He pulled the old note from his wallet, yellowed and creased, the ink as sharp as the day it was written. For 30 years, he had managed floods, allocated water, and enforced the law. Now the reservoir was alive with laughter and fishing lines, a living memorial to his grandfather's gift.
They tried to drain it. Instead, they made it permanent.
He stood at the edge of the dam as the sunset turned the water gold, and for the first time, he felt no need to explain himself. On a Sunday morning, the fishing pier was full. Veterans, families, and a boy with a brand new rod.
First time since NAM I felt this kind of quiet. Thank you, Colonel.
Larry, sitting on a bench, just nodded and pointed at the boy's bobbing red and white float. The float plunged. The boy reeled in a small sunfish, his first catch, eyes wide with wonder. He released it, and it darted back into the deep with a splash, leaving ripples on the surface.
This is better than any commendation.
A mother filled a water bottle from the fountain by the interpretive sign. The fountain splashed, the sound mixing with children's laughter from the pier and the distant hum of a lawnmower. The sign had a new handwritten addition. "This water belongs to everyone who respects it."
That's all I ever wanted them to understand.
In winter, the reservoir froze along the edges, the dam holding silent against the cold. Come spring, ducks returned to the reeds, and the pier groaned with new visitors. During a summer storm, the dam held back a surge, the sluice gates roaring open. Morning broke clear, the reservoir calm, a new day over the water. By autumn, the trees turned gold, and the water mirrored the changing sky. At the pier, a veteran cast his line into the autumn water. A bronze plaque was set into a stone near the pier's entrance. Sometimes the ones who hold the water are the ones you least expect. And when you try to drain what they protect, you might find your own taps run dry. The water flowed on, indifferent to the courts, and the people simply lived beside it. 700 miles away, Dorothy Covington sat in a small one-bedroom apartment, a different kind of quiet filling the space. She worked as a compliance officer for a small regional utility, reviewing permit applications for water meters. A framed photo of the reservoir stood on her desk, the water blue and calm under a summer sky. She dusted it every morning, the glass catching the light from a window that faced west.
She didn't hate Larry McAllister. She never had. She'd hated the feeling of not being in control.
The water had been in control all along. She just refused to see it. She sued the wrong pond, and the pond won.
She looked at the photo, and for the first time, it felt like an apology.
She never returned to Ridgeline Heights, but every year, a small donation arrived for the veterans' fishing area, signed simply, DC. The water reflected in the glass, and for a moment, she saw herself in it. A month later, Larry McAllister was promoted to Senior Water Resources Director.
He accepted the pin, but his thoughts were already back at the dam.
He still drove the old truck, still wore the same red flannel, still kept his boots dusty. Before each dawn, he walked the length of the dam, coffee mug in hand, listening to the water.
The title changed, but the job never did. He was still the steward of this watershed.
The reservoir reflected the first light of a new day, just as it had for decades. He never spoke of the lawsuit anymore. The water carried its own memory. A fish jumped, breaking the surface in a silver flash, and he smiled.
He was exactly where he was supposed to be.
The sun climbed higher, and the water kept moving, deep and patient, forever serving the land. The reservoir lay calm under the high afternoon sun, the fishing pier lively with families and veterans. So here is the thing about water rights. They might just be the most powerful thing you never think about until you try to take them from someone who knows the law. That pier, full of people who once had nothing but dry taps and foreclosure notices, was the proof. A fish jumped, silver and quick, scattering droplets like tiny promises. All you could hear was the ripple of water against the dam and the laughter from the pier. The sign at the gate read, McAllister Veterans Fishing Area, Public Access, a gift that could never be revoked. And the water, indifferent to all the lawsuits and the noise, simply kept moving, forever serving the land, forever holding the memory of a quiet engineer who understood its power.